Designing wheelchairs for all shapes and sizes. People who use wheelchairs come in all different shapes and sizes, children and adults, tall and short, big and small, and so do the wheelchairs they use. Some wheelchairs have motors, and others are operated by hand. People who use wheelchairs do all kinds of different things. Wheelchair users may go to school or work in an office. They may sing in a rock band, take their dogs to the park, compete in races, or lead a parade through city streets. Wheelchairs are designed for the people who use them and for the different activities they want to do. Dr. Rory Cooper knows all about designing wheelchairs. He's an engineer who works to improve wheelchair safety, comfort, and usefulness. He and his team design wheelchairs for many different purposes, from world-class racing and other sports to everyday mobility. Dr. Cooper served in the United States Army. During his service, he was injured and began using a wheelchair. After he left the military, he went to college and studied engineering. Today, Dr. Cooper runs the Human Engineering Research Labs at the University of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. There, he works with other scientists on technologies that help people with disabilities. Dr. Cooper is also an athlete. He won a bronze medal in wheelchair racing at the 1988 Paralympics. The Paralympics are a series of athletic events for people with disabilities. They take place just after the Olympics and in the same location as the Olympics. Dr. Cooper designs each wheelchair to fit the person who will be using it and the activities it will be needed for. One way he and his team can change the design of a wheelchair is by changing the mass of the chair. Mass is the amount of matter that makes up an object. On Earth, objects with more mass are heavier than objects with less mass. By changing the mass of a wheelchair, Dr. Cooper can make it change velocity more easily or less easily. That makes each chair useful for certain activities. For example, some wheelchairs are built especially for playing different sports. Wheelchairs used for wheelchair racing are built for speed. That means they need to be light. Lighter chairs change velocity more easily than heavier ones, so it's easier for a racer to go from sitting still to racing speed in a light chair. It also takes less force from the racer to stop a light chair than it takes to stop a heavy chair. Dr. Cooper's racing wheelchairs are made of materials that are light and strong, so the racer can start the race and speed up as quickly as possible using the least possible force. Not all athletes in wheelchairs want to change velocity easily. Another popular sport that uses wheelchairs is wheelchair rugby, a fast, full-contact sport played on a court similar to a basketball court. Wheelchair rugby players need stability. They crash into each other often, and it's important that they don't tip over in a collision. For this reason, rugby wheelchairs are heavier than racing wheelchairs. Their weight means players need to use more force to get them moving when they're stopped and to make them stop moving once they get going, but it also means they aren't affected as much by the forces involved in collisions, so they are less likely to fall over during a crash. Rugby players in heavy, stable wheelchairs are more likely to stay upright and play successfully for their teams. Designing wheelchairs with less mass for racing and wheelchairs with more mass for sports like rugby is just one example of how wheelchairs can be designed for different users and activities. When engineers design wheelchairs, the most important consideration is the person who is using the chair. A smaller person needs a different wheelchair than a larger person. Some wheelchair users turn the wheels of their chair by hand, while others use chairs with electric motors. Some wheelchair users are able to operate their chairs simply by moving their eyes. Wheelchair users choose chairs that work for their needs, fit their budget, and suit their own personal styles. Wheelchairs come in many types, and thanks to Dr. Cooper's work at Hurl, wheelchair users have more options than ever before.